Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi, and that seems to be our focus on the show tonight. The Gaza Peace Plan. Is that a miracle or is it actually a mirage? Well, let's get straight down to this. Israeli troops are pulling back from Gaza in a historic first phase of the withdrawal as part of Donald Trump's high-stakes peace plan. But with a 72-hour deadline looming for hostage releases, both Hamas and Netanyahu holding firm on their respective red lines, is this a true triumph or a deal teetering on a knife's edge? We'll dissect the details, the mediators, the risks, and what it all means for a lasting peace in West Asia. Let's dive right into the headlines shaking up the region. Israeli troops have completed the first phase of their pullback from Gaza, wrapping up at 12 local time today in the afternoon, which was little over 5.5 hours ago. This comes just a day after Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire following intense talks in Egypt on the 9th of October. US President Donald Trump is claiming credit for brokering this particular accord, hailing it as a triumphant breakthrough. And he sets his eyes on a visit to Israel on the 13th of October to underscore the American commitment behind this ceasefire deal. In a bold move, Washington will deploy 200 troops to Israel to monitor the ceasefire's implementation as well. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called the deal a national and moral victory for Israel, emphasizing security concerns. Meanwhile, you've got Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who's played a pivotal role in finalizing the terms, leveraging his particular influence. But Hamas is pushing back, insisting there's no final agreement yet on which prisoners will be freed first. All eyes are now on them to release the hostages from the 7th of October 2023 attack within the next 72 hours.
I think it's going to be great. I think it's the hostages will be coming back Monday or Tuesday. I'll probably be there. I hope to be there, and we're planning on leaving sometime Sunday, and I look forward to it. And everybody I see is celebrating in Israel, but they're celebrating in many other countries too. A lot of the Muslim and Arab countries, they're celebrating. Everybody's celebrating. Everybody loves the deal. So it's a great honor to have been working on it. And as you know, it's all finalized and done. We've had a lot of terrifically talented people. We've had tremendous support from UAE, Saudi Arabia. Qatar has been unbelievable. Egypt, as you know, and Jordan. Indonesia. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out. Just so many different countries. It's been incredible. Nobody's seen anything like it. So I think in a year from now, it's going to be. I think it's going to be Monday or Tuesday. It's going to be around that time. Yeah, they're working on it very hard. They're in very diverse parts of the earth. Okay, they're very, very diverse. Actually, it's. I think they're going to come through. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think it'll happen. Yeah, nobody's going to be forced to leave. No, it's just the opposite. This is a great plan. This is a great peace plan. This is a plan that was supported by everybody. I mean, as I said, they're dancing in the streets of many, many countries right now. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
We're at a momentous development in the last 2 years. We fought during these 2 years to achieve our war aims. And a central one of these war aims is to return the hostages, all of the hostages, the living and the dead. And we're about to achieve that goal. We couldn't have achieved it without the extraordinary help of President Trump and his team, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They worked tirelessly with Ron and his team, our team. That and the courage of our soldiers who entered Gaza and the combined military and diplomatic pressure that isolated Hamas, I think, has brought us to this point. I want to personally thank both of you, Steve, Jared. It's been long hours. You put in your brains and your hearts, and we know that it's for the benefit of Israel and the United States, for the benefit of decent people everywhere, and for the benefit of these families who will finally get to be with their loved ones. And I want to thank you on their behalf as well, and on behalf of the people of Israel.
You heard the statements of the major stakeholders there, but let's break down the nuts and bolts of this Gaza peace plan. It is a fragile framework aimed at ending 2 years of devastation. The Israeli Defense Forces have already withdrawn to a designated yellow line inside Gaza, ceding control of 47% of the territory. 53% still with them. These are primarily residential areas. In exchange, Hamas is committed to releasing 20 living hostages and handing over 28 bodies within 72 hours of the ceasefire start. Israel, for its part, will free 500 Gazans arrested since October 2023, with plans to release an additional 1,700 prisoners, including 250 serving life sentences, of course, in phases. Humanitarian aid is a cornerstone of this peace deal. 400 relief trucks will enter Gaza daily through the Rafah crossing, ramping up to 700 to address the crisis that is in place. To ensure compliance, an international monitoring team from Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and the UAE, and of course the United States, will be overseeing everything from convoys and prisoner exchanges to troop movements. An emergency panel is also in place to swiftly resolve any breaches, adding a layer of accountability to this high wire act. This deal didn't materialize in a vacuum. It owes its existence to a coalition of global mediators working behind the scenes. Egypt hosted the crucial talks, ensuring safe aid access and transit routes. Qatar served as a vital channel to Hamas, securing their written reply to the US proposal and hammering out fine print for prisoner sequencing and hostage release. Turkey, under Recep Tayyip Erdogan, influenced Hamas directly, lending credibility and stepping up for a monitoring role. The UAE publicly backed the accord, focusing on humanitarian relief whilst aligning with the US interests. The US under President Donald Trump pushed Netanyahu hard and drafted a comprehensive 20-point plan to get everyone onto the table. But here's the sobering reality. This peace deal is on a knife's edge. What could kill it? On Israel's side, red lines are non-negotiable. These are retaining control over critical areas in the southern Gaza corridor, keeping life-sentenced prisoners detained, enforcing buffer zones, and coordinating with the West Bank. Any threat to military capabilities could prompt Israel to withdraw entirely. Hamas has its own unyielding demands. A full Israeli exit from populated Gaza, binding UN-enforced ruling of sustainable calm, no military presence east of the yellow line beyond 30 days, and no non-Palestinian involvement in Gaza's post-war political setup. With these clashing priorities, one misstep could unravel it all. So will peace finally get a chance in West Asia? In the short term, phase one looks promising, bolstered by strong guarantors and tight diplomatic oversight to keep things on track. Medium-term hurdles are steeper. Issues like Hamas's disarmament, a technocratic transition government, and a clear roadmap to Palestinian statehood could test the resolve. Long-term success? It'll hinge on global unity, robust enforcement mechanisms, and a delicate balance between Israeli security needs and the Palestinian sovereignty. An informed set of panelists that's waiting for you right on the other side, and the big questions we're trying to decode tonight. Will this ceasefire provide a long-term path to peace, or is it just a fragile pause? Will international guarantors enforce compliance? If either side violates the deal, that's something that the entire world is waiting on to see at this point in time. With me on the broadcast, Major retired Dan Pfefferman, co-editor Middle East 24, joining us live from Tel Aviv. Many thanks for joining us, sir. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense and geopolitical expert. Always a pleasure to have you with us, General. Dr. Zakir Hussain, Middle East expert and ex-research fellow at the Indian Council of World Affairs, ICWA. Many thanks for joining us and taking out the time, Dr. Hussain. And Dr. Manjari Singh, assistant professor, Amity Institute of International Studies. Many thanks for taking out the time. You know what, Major Pfefferman, let me quickly come to you for opening comments across the board. Let's start with Israel's calculations. The yellow line, let's put that into perspective. That withdrawal and the yellow line and that perspective, given the hostage timelines as well, is this a security compromise or is this a calculated risk? Help us understand what might have gone through in the security cabinet, where, mind you, Netanyahu stopped and paused the security cabinet to pick up Prime Minister Modi's call. But that's a separate thing. The yellow line withdrawal, the hostage timelines, and of course, is this calculated risk or is this a security compromise from where the Israeli cabinet is looking at it?
Sure. Everything we do here is a calculated risk. Let's be clear on that. The security apparatus, the military has their own calculations, and that is the areas that need to be controlled for example, to stop arms smuggling. So, for example, the Rafah, the Philadelphia corridor on the Rafah border with Egypt was for 20 years the avenue of major arms smuggling, and not just arms smuggling, which is why it was the pipeline to Hamas's economy and military machine. And so from a military perspective, it's imperative that we retain control of that. The rest of it, we want to make sure here in Israel that Hamas does not once again encroach on the borders, something that it did over the years with different excuses. And so it needs to be pushed back from the borders, especially as very cautiously Israeli civilians who used to live along the borders and the ones attacked on October 7th are starting to come back to their homes. However, there is a political issue here and there's a strategic issue, and that is if Israel pulls out entirely from the Gaza Strip as part of this mechanism to get back the hostages, it's from an international legitimacy perspective much more difficult to go back in if and when Hamas violates the terms of the ceasefire. And so Israel is sort of withdrawing from major Palestinian population areas, but keeping its foot in the door, so to speak, which is incredibly important, because if Israel entirely withdraws from the territory of the Gaza Strip, and Hamas will, I hate to say, but almost undoubtedly at some point violate the terms of the ceasefire, then from an international, regional legitimacy perspective, even the support of the Americans, it's much more difficult to get the legitimacy.
That's exactly what I wanted to understand, because Major, Netanyahu has called this one of Israel's greatest achievements. We all saw that press conference as well. Kushner on one side, Mr. Witkoff, and Mr. Witkoff was sent to the Middle East by the US president even before the January 20th inauguration, and that was struck down. Of course, so much of hectic parleying that happened, but Netanyahu has called this one of Israel's greatest achievements. Is this a domestic political message to his own coalition, or does this genuinely reflect confidence in Hamas's compliance? Because everybody's worried about compliance, and not just from Hamas, from both these sides.
There's three parts to that, and I'll try to be quick. First of all, it is absolutely for domestic audiences. Netanyahu cannot be seen as having basically given into Hamas's demands, although we have to be clear, there is a small element of that, and that's exactly what the hostages were meant to do. Secondly, this has to be perceived regionally and by Hamas as a victory. And unfortunately, the victories are not always on the battlefield. They're also in the space of perception and communication space. This is not something that could have been achieved a year ago. And Netanyahu has to make it clear, because as bloodied and as battered and as weakened as Hamas is, having lost most of its fighters, almost all of its senior leadership, and most of its weaponry, will still try to claim victory somehow, some way. And so there is a perception game here. There's a domestic audience game here. But there is also a major achievement which does need to be recognized. All right.
Critics have warned that Israel's far right could derail the next phase of prisoner releases, but we'll go across the board once and then come back to you, Major. Do stay on with us. General Kulkarni, let me come to you next very quickly. General Kulkarni, from a defense perspective, how realistic is this ceasefire when Indians are looking at it? And from your own defense and geopolitical prism, can Hamas comply operationally? And what happens if the truce collapses? And that's a big what if.
Kabir, thank you. I think rather than calling it a ceasefire, it would better be called a cessation of hostilities in phase one and for phase one success. If phase one is a great success, then of course phase two and phase three, and then it will be turned to the ceasefire for a final negotiated settlement. To begin with, as what one was talking about, the yellow line. Now, the yellow line greatly about, a great amount of areas, the residential areas having gone back. Hopefully, all these displaced people can go back. So that's a huge thing. About getting back 47% of the area is a huge thing, because out of 365 square kilometers, 80% of it was with Israel. And they've given up 47%. And the balance of it, of course, coming back to the red line, would be the international, the monitoring force coming in. But to begin with, it's a big success. There's no denying the fact, because 50% of the battle has been won. As Israel gets back its hostages dead and alive. More important here in after is what Israel has been insisting: demilitarization and disarmament. Now, the demilitarization and disarmament, with what the Palestinians, the Hamas are saying again and again, there is no non-Palestinian involvement in Gaza. That seems rather difficult, but notwithstanding that, I'm sure it will be negotiable, because Hamas itself would be under tremendous pressure, though they don't see eye to eye with PLO, and PLO would have no role to play in it. But non-Palestinian involvement in Gaza may not be acceptable to Israel, because Israel would want to be a part of the entire security setup, because it would ensure Gaza is a demilitarized zone. Gaza and the Gazans, none are, we call them Hamas or by any other name, should not hold a weapon. If that can be assured, probably things will be peaceful. But then that goes against the tenet of Hamas, because they insist on the sovereignty and they insist on the two-state solution. They insist on the Palestinians wanting to be as Palestinians and not to be dictated. That's what the whole thing is all about. Because from 2009, they've had a fight in 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, and well, this one was almost for last 2 years. And therefore, now, except, I would say, if Hamas accepts that yes, Israel as a state exists and that it will exist, no problems whatsoever. I think Israel must accept that Gaza be left to the Gazans to rule rather than interfere and insist, because the buffer zone is still there. And that buffer zone is to ensure, after the yellow line, the red line, and the buffer zone, that all said and Gaza still remains encircled and kind of covered from all directions. And even now also, Israel still holds Rafah, it still holds Khan Yunis, parts of Gaza City, the two baits. So there is a lot that Israel is still there, and I'm hopeful that Hamas...
53% of Gaza, to be precise. 53% of Gaza.
Yes.
47 given back.
Yes.
53 still with the Israeli Defense Forces. Dr. Zakir Hussain is also with us, Middle East expert. You know, Dr. Hussain, help the viewers understand what might be going through in the minds of the people in Gaza, in the Palestinian enclave. Civilians are returning to Gaza after months of war, months of displacement. I know reconciliation is not a word that anybody is looking at right now, but how are they seeing this truce? How is somebody in the Palestinian enclave, how are they looking at these developments? Is it a real path to peace, or is it just a small little pause in cessation of hostilities, just like General told us, before another offensive actually happens?
Basically, they are more suspicious than us because they have suffered the real life there. And they also feel that the trust deficit exists on both sides. While the first phase is going well, so we are very optimistic. And this credit goes to President Trump, because President Biden failed even to budge Netanyahu. So I feel that throughout the role of President Trump is very crucial to control Netanyahu. On the other hand, the role of 200 forces of coalition forces of international body is also very important to ensure that Hamas is not going to pick up arms again. And second, that what is more important here is that Israel is still there. It has not gone back. As we are telling that 53% is still, Palestinians are huddled in a more closer enclave than earlier. It was 365 square kilometer. So what I feel that the issue of Netanyahu's, what will happen to the issue of Netanyahu's greater Israel? They have not given up. So I don't think that this Israel is going to stop here, even if Hamas surrenders its weapon, or it takes a honorable exit, or it gives up all authorities to the Palestinian Authority.
What about the hostage deal, Dr. Hussain? What about the hostage deal? Are you confident that it's going to go across, smoothly, or do you think things can go all right?
I'm confident, because Trump has put enough pressure on the one hand. On the other hand, Israel and Netanyahu have seen how the world is viewing them, and the flotilla and all the European countries, public is putting enough pressure on them. So I feel that the first phase will go very smoothly, and we hope that peace will come. But the problem is with Israel, whether it will accept the second phase. And we all know that in Middle East, no peace deal has survived more than 6 months.
Okay. So we do have a pattern in play over here as well. We do have a pattern. There is a precedent in play. Dr. Singh, let me bring her into the discussion. Dr. Manjari Singh, Assistant Professor, Amity Institute of International Studies. Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, they're all guarantors, with Donald Trump claiming the central role here. Now, is this a sustainable diplomatic framework or just another headline moment? Because this Game of Thrones is continuing to go on. We're also learning about how two major actors came about, Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Donald Trump. Donald Trump using a mixture of praises and pressure, and Recep Tayyip Erdogan being the trust factor with Hamas, putting that pressure on Hamas. So I'm just trying to understand, Trump claiming the central role, do you think this is a sustainable diplomatic framework?
As of now, it feels like it, because if you look at it, this is not the first ceasefire deal that has taken place. I mean, since January, there have been ceasefire deals that have come in.
According to Donald Trump, this would have been the 8th one. He's really miffed he did not get the Nobel Peace Prize today as well.
Yeah, true. That's true. But what is different in this ceasefire deal is that this is a cumulative effort. This is not something wherein the countries are working in silos. For instance, if you look at the Withdrawal plan, it was primarily the US that was playing a role in that plan. Then there came the Egypt plan, wherein Egypt was the main member, taking kind of a central role in terms of bringing in ceasefire. But here you see that there is a collective effort that is being put. And like you also rightly mentioned, that how Recep Erdogan, how he has tried to build a pressure point on Hamas and bring them to the negotiating table, because as of now, it was very difficult to even get to the first stage. This first stage may look very, easy at this point in time. But since we have to understand that since January, there has been no, very limited amount of hostages that were released. Not many hostages. I mean, still 48 people are there. I mean, dead and alive. So in that sense, I think that this is the cumulative effort. The Arab clout and the Turkish clout is kind of working in favor of the Trump peace plan. So I feel that it seems to be a sustainable plan, but only in the first few phases.
Dr. Singh, but still looking ahead, and I know, of course, we're jumping the gun here. I don't want to put you in a spot, but just want your, opinion on this. If the deal does collapse, and let's hope for good sense to prevail and that it does not happen, what are likely geopolitical consequences? Because Turkey has emerged this bigger player than Egypt, it seems. The signing did happen there, but Turkey played its own role. For Israel, Hamas, for the Gulf states, for US's own credibility, what will be the consequences if this deal collapses?
See, there are many factors involved in it. Nobody wants Hamas to be, let's be very honest on this. At least the Arabs don't want, because they are looking at a development-centric, role in Middle East. And that's why you see that as soon as Trump came to power this year, he made his first trip to Middle East. And he had signed many deals, $1 trillion deals with most of the Arab countries, and even with the defense deal that was signed with Turkey. So they are looking at cooperation with the US. So in that sense, I feel that they have done some groundwork to make sure that some part of this, because see, there are other parts, for instance, the de-radicalization of Hamas. Now, how do you do that? Will Turkey's pressure point work on it? I mean, of course, in hostage exchange and everything, I can understand. But it is an ideological setup. It is an ideological format. So in that sense, I don't think the de-radicalization can happen by external force. It has to be happening within Hamas. And is Hamas ready for it? Because as of now, I don't see it. I mean, they have said that they will not be in the governance. That's what the 20-point agenda also says, that it will be Hamas-free governance that will be there. But Hamas is keeping that kind of a aspect also open, that they want to be in the governance aspect. So that's what I'm saying, that this is I mean, I don't know, there are many loopholes in the later phases, and once it collapses, then I feel then we are back to square one.
All right, let's focus back on to the center point of this ceasefire deal. The cessation of hostilities, my apologies, General, is actually the hostage release deal. Major Pfefferman, let me come back to you next. The hostage release is contingent on Hamas locating all the captives and remains within the 72 hours. Does Israel realistically believe Hamas has operational control to meet these respective deadlines?
I think it's pretty clear from everything, the indications I've seen, that Hamas knows where the living hostages are and has been moving them into safer places. It is not clear that they will be able to identify the remains of the roughly 28 or so whose bodies remain in Gaza. And this is going to be the first hurdle. my sense is they will abide by this hurdle, and in order to get the Israeli withdrawal, which comes first, and then, of course, to get their prisoners back from the Israeli prison. So I'm less worried about the first stage. Of course, we'll breathe a huge, huge sigh of relief here in Israel. The country has been celebrating. I hope it's not premature, but celebrating nonstop for the last few days since the agreement was signed. This is a country that has been absolutely on edge, as its citizens have been tortured and starved and held in the worst of conditions imaginable for the last 2 years. And we're just waiting to get our citizens back. And then shifting into phase 2 of this agreement, as my co-panelists were saying, the disarmament, the demilitarization, the de-radicalization, those are going to be the key parts. And it's hard for me to see Hamas signing off on its own basically retirement plan, but that's really what needs to happen for this region to move forward.
All right. Also people are calling this to be a balancing act between morals and actually political optics. Critics are warning that Israel's far right could derail the next phase of the prisoner release. How serious is this internal political risk for Netanyahu, Major, sustaining the ceasefire, and what might be Israel's contingency? Because they're not happy with so many Palestinian prisoners being let off.
They're not, and these are hardened prisoners, many of whom, if not most of whom, with blood on their hands, convicted terrorists. However, and they've said they are going to try to derail this or try to vote against it. My sense is that Netanyahu will be able to get the support necessary from the centrist, even the center-right elements of the opposition in order to see this deal through. The majority of Israel, the majority of Israelis, the majority of the Knesset members want this deal to go through, want the ceasefire to go through. As it is written, if Hamas throws more hurdles into the loop, that's going to be a different scenario. But even with Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and the hard line pulling strings, I'll just add one last thing. Smotrich and Ben Gvir are not polling very well ahead of the next elections, and so they might not try to topple this government, because then their chances of getting into the next one are going to be actually lower.
Too many sips between the cup and the lip. It all might change tomorrow as well, Major. You never know. General Kulkarni, let me quickly come to you next. Donald Trump claims credit for the ceasefire, with the U.S. backing as leverage over Israel and the regional actors over there. Of course, his phone calls with Erdogan playing a crucial part. But from a strategic standpoint, does personal diplomacy like this actually benefit, or enhance enforcement of the ceasefire, or does it now risk politicizing the entire military commitment, the entire warfare and the theater?
Kabir, well begun is half done. So America can definitely take credit. There's no denying the fact that Qatar was all along financing Hamas, and all with connivance of Israel, hoping that they would keep the PLO away from Hamas. So that did work really. So you find that there was, after Qatar was, Khalil, where they were intending to be, Khalil survived, but most of those other people who died in Qatar, so there was a lot of pressure on Qatar. Turkey. Now the question is, where do they rehabilitate these Palestinians? So one place, of course, is Syria. In Yemen, there is Indonesia. So you find how Trump also is, stating in no uncertain terms, thanking Indonesia, thanking Erdogan, thanking Egypt, Qatar, everybody. So notwithstanding all that, I think primarily that Israel has vacated 155 square kilometers of an area even before a single hostage has been released, because for 20 live hostages to be released, 3,000 Palestinians will be released. And that's a huge number to be released. And therefore, I feel phase 1 should go smoothly. If the question is the phase 2. Now, the phase 2, the red line thing, is not going to be easy, because Hamas will not accept any international stabilization force, because there would be an occupation of the yellow line. And again, the conflict will start between the yellow line, where you will have most of the displaced Palestinians already there. So there are about 20 odd lakh people. They will all now gather into this 155 square kilometer of an area, where most of these humanitarian assistance and all these vehicles will start moving, 400 going up to 700. So again, you will find that most Palestinians will get food to eat. So there will not be any starvation. There will not be any humanitarian crisis.
So those are the good signs. So those are the good signs, General. More aid that's coming in. Dr. Hussain was earlier telling us that, credit to Donald Trump where it's due. This has happened because of him. And at the moment, Dr. Singh is also hopeful that this will last. But these are only the baby steps that this ceasefire, again, my apologies, General, cessation of hostilities deal has taken place. Many thanks to all my panelists, Dr. Hussain, Dr. Singh. General, always a pleasure to have you with us. Major Fiferman joining us live from Tel Aviv. But the big question, even as we wrap this show up, will this ceasefire provide a long-term path to peace, or is it just a fragile pause? Will international guarantors enforce compliance, or is this just politicizing the entire military theater? I think only time will tell. The crucial 72 hours are on. Let's see how smoothly the hostage transfer and the release actually happens. That's all the time we have for you in this edition of In Your Interest. Many thanks for watching. Top developments right on the other side.
मेरी बेटी के अभी से बाल झड़ रहे हैं, मैं क्या करूं?
2 स्पून ही काफी है। लायन डेट सिरप, इसमें आयरन, फाइबर्स, विटामिन्स और किसी भी बीमारी से लड़ने की ताकत बहुत ज्यादा है। आयरन यानी बाल झड़ने से रोकथाम। रोजाना 2 स्पून लायन डेट सिरप हल्के गर्म दूध में भी मिलाकर पी सकते हैं। लायन डेट सिरप रोजाना 2 स्पून।
भाई, ऑन रोड या ऑफ रोड?
रोड ट्रिप पे किस बाइक की सवारी होगी, ये खूबसूरत चिंता आप करिए। 2 व्हीलर लोन की चिंता हम संभाल लेंगे विद स्पॉट अप्रूवल एंड लोन अप टू 95%।
What is to the nines?